Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast and brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at the Wild Wild West Tropicana and Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Andrew DiCecco has the honors of coming in after that debacle last night. 41-21, Dallas, and it wasn't that close. Where do we start? Andrew comes in now here on the Sports Bash on a Tuesday after an ugly Monday night loss, Andrew, which, I don't know about you, it felt like at no point the Eagles were competitive in that game, even though there were shots for them to stay and get back in that game. It was 20-7. It was 24-17. They had some chances to stay in the game, but at no point did it feel like the two teams were of the same caliber. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and they had that small glimmer of hope with Fletcher Cox came up with the football in the end zone, and it was 7-7, but that quickly dissipated, and it sort of just got out of control from there. It started spiraling out of control, and, you saw the final outcome.
Obviously, right from the get-go, the Cowboys decided, hey, you can't stop us, and they stuck with it. What'd you see defensively that may be something that is worrisome moving forward?
Just being gashed in the running game, Mike. I mean, they're just getting bullied and pushed off the ball, not getting any penetration. If it's not Javon Hargrave or Fletcher Cox getting that penetration up the middle, they're not. There's not a whole lot of. They're not getting a lot of resistance. Teams you saw it in week one, right, with Mike Davis having his way with the Eagles' defensive line, defense as a whole in that first half before the score ultimately dictated their offensive approach. And you're seeing the product of having undersized linebackers that when your defensive line can't keep those guys clean, they're all of a sudden getting exposed. They're good sideline to sideline, but when you're asking them to attack downhill, that's not their strong suit. That's not what they're adept at doing. And that's a recipe for disaster. They're also not good in coverage. They made Dalton Schultz look like Travis Kelce. Dalton Schultz is an okay tight end, but he went into the game with 8 catches for 63 yards. I believe he finished last night alone with 7 for 80 and 2 touchdowns. There's issues all over that defense, and they're going to have to get it corrected because they're getting an angry Kansas City Chiefs team coming in to the link on Sunday.
Yep, you mentioned the linebackers there and how they just really had a tough game in terms of the physicality. Like, it just seemed that they were worn down. But one thing with the defense, you saw how Dak, he really was toying, it seemed like, with Jonathan Gannon's group. They kept those safeties back. He would look out over. If they brought the safety up, he saw it right away. I mean, is that just, hey, Dak Prescott's really good, or are people catching on to what the Eagles are trying to do?
It's a combination of both. Dak Prescott is a very savvy quarterback, and he's going to take advantage of anything that he sees, anything he can use as leverage. He's gonna expose it and exploit it, and he did that right off the bat. And the Eagles didn't have an answer for it, and they just continuously kept going back to the well. And then they would go back to the running game, and they would gash him there with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. They just had their options to do whatever they wanted against the Eagles, and there was nothing that Jonathan Gannon and his crew could do to stop them.
Nope, not at all.
Which is troubling because we talked about that offensive firepower of the Kansas City Chiefs coming into town on Sunday. So they're going to have to get that corrected in a hurry because they don't have a lot of time to get it right.
All right, Jonathan Gannon, obviously his unit had a tough night at the office. They couldn't get a stop. Now, they did get a couple of stops. They just were on the field so much. That's because Nick Sirianni's unit ran the ball 3 times last night, had just I thought Sirianni, I thought he was bad last week. All right, I'm willing to see if you fixed it. I thought he was worse this week. I mean, what did you think about the game plan Nick Sirianni came in with last night?
To be honest with you, he looked lost. It looked like the moment was quite big for him. The bright lights of Monday Night Football. You thought that was ultimately. I mean, those bright lights can you're either going to rise to the occasion or you're going to sort of shrivel up. And it's a young team, Mike. You have a lot of young wide receivers. You have a young quarterback who just made his 7th NFL start. He's essentially a rookie, and you were missing 2 starters on the offensive line. So going into the game. So that's just not a recipe. You have to find a way to get your quarterback and your offense settled into the flow of the game. The Cowboys would have allowed Dallas Goedert to have his way. The flats were open for the running backs. Get your quarterback involved with these short passes and start to pick up chunk plays and make it, manageable distances to pick up these yards. Instead of having them just drop back and you're essentially asking your quarterback to win the game for you. Miles Sanders having 2 carries in the game is unacceptable. I believe that was the Eagles set an NFL record with fewest rush attempts, if I'm not mistaken. It's just you have to. Jalen was off the mark. I mean, obviously there that underthrow to Jalen Reagor in the end zone. That was woefully underthrown, but he also was behind on several throws. But you also, if you're Nick Sirianni, you have to find a way to help your young quarterback out and put him in position to be successful.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like when you look at Hurts last night, I mean, the yardage 326. He had a couple plays with his feet. He made the throw to Ward. Go figure. Old reliable Greg Ward's the one guy who steps up and makes a play. But how does Hurts look through 3 games? I mean, if I said to you, hey, you need to give me an answer on Jalen Hurts after 3 games, would you be – I mean, obviously you would say, well, I need more time. But through 3 games, have you seen any trends or anything that makes you concerned, or you feel like this guy has shown enough that he can be a good week-to-week starter?
Well, it seems like the game plan is very simplified for Jalen. He keys in on his primary read, and when that's not there, he doesn't let routes develop, and he's not patient to work through his progressions. He's quick to elude the pocket. These are things that we talked about last season. He's got to be more patient and hang in there and let routes develop, because then you're disrupting the whole flow of the offense. And he's just not accurate when, they talk about the pass to Dallas Goedert out there. He had Dallas Goedert wide open. Dallas Goedert, yes, he should have caught the ball, but that was behind him. The one that Quez Watkins, that contested ball, that was behind him. And these are things that you start to notice. Like the ball placement is very inconsistent. He thrived in the Atlanta Falcons game in the opener when everything was sort of close to the line of scrimmage. They were working horizontally. These are things that you start to pick up on, and defensive coordinators are as well. They're making Jalen Hurts beat him down the field, and even on those short to intermediate routes, which he really has starting to struggle with his ball placement. So you need to see this progression, and I think you owe it to Jalen to give him a full season to see if he's able to make those adjustments and if the coaches are able to work on him with his footwork and things of that nature. But right now, there's a lot of tendencies, and that you can clearly see that defensive coordinators are catching up to him.
Yeah, I know the throw on the deep throw. I mean, he makes a great throw to start the game to Goddard. I don't want to say a great throw, just an easy pitch and catch. They get a big gainer out of it, and you feel like, okay, you went down and scored. We're coming right back. That interception, I mean, he throws that. That's an underthrow right there. And then there's the throw to Goddard, who's wide open out there. That's a throw that we criticized Carson Wentz for missing essentially all year last year. That's a simple NFL pitch and catch, right?
Yeah. It's funny that I thought Jalen's best throw of the night was on that 24-yarder in the fourth quarter to Quez Watkins down the right sideline. They ultimately didn't end up counting because of Landon Dickerson. I believe he was ineligible downfield. But there was not a lot of remarkable passes from Jalen last night. I thought that he, along with the entire offense and Nick Sirianni, really struggled. The defense, they had their own issues, but you have to remember they did have 2 goal line stops. They got them on the board early, and then after a while they bend but don't break, and that's what you saw. And it just wasn't complimentary football by any stretch.
Yeah, Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. Good stuff here. Obviously, the offensive line lost another piece. Sayamala's out for the year. Liz Frank injury, so he's done. You're already down Brooks. You're out Mailata the other night. So you're essentially, Andrew, right back to where you were last year, with 3 replacement guys. So let's start with Sayamala. Do you anticipate them moving Dickerson from right to left and Herbig from left to right? Do they stick with what they had, Herbig at left, and keep Dickerson at right? How do the 2 guards now play out with the 2 injuries already in the interior?
And this is the exact reason why on your show I mentioned that I would be hesitant to deal Andre Dillard, because while it looked like you have an embarrassment of riches in the trenches, we know how quickly things can change, and now all of a sudden you're having to rely on some of these depth pieces. But fortunately for the Eagles, Nate Herbig has played a lot of football for them because of those circumstances last season. He can play left or right. I think if you're the Eagles, you kind of want to keep Landon Dickerson where he's at right now. Keep him at right. Keep Nate Herbig at the left. As for a rookie, you don't want to have him all over the place. You want him to be able to just focus on one position and let him, try and excel and execute what they're asking him from that spot instead of moving him all over the place. If you want to move him to left guard, you want to move him to center in the off season, go ahead and he'll have plenty of time to adapt to that. But I think right now, just put Herbig at left, keep Landon at right, and sort of go from there. But yeah. I mean, and they also have Sua Opeta around, who also played saw some game action last season.
Driscoll just got the 21-day window just opened up for Driscoll too.
Right. So, I mean, is it ideal? No, but a lot of these depth guys they're not exactly green, if you know what I'm saying. Like they played some football, so they have some experience to fall back on.
What'd you think of Dillard last night?
Actually, I didn't think he was too bad. Obviously, they gave him a little bit of help, but you didn't hear his name called very often. And I thought that, based on what we've seen from Andre Dillard, I thought that was, pretty encouraging. I thought that he acquitted himself, fairly well. I mean, there's obviously certain aspects of his game last night that you could see that you don't want him out there as an every week starter, but it was a lot better than I anticipated. I'll tell you that.
Talking with Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. Jamie Collins just got released by the Lions. Would you have any interest in him after watching the Eagle linebackers last night?
Maybe they'll kick the tires on him, but he's been bouncing around a little bit. I'm not exactly sure what he has left or what he can contribute to a defense at this stage. Maybe he can fill like that Jannard Avery type role, be a Sam linebacker, let's see a handful of snaps. I mean, it certainly can't hurt. I'm just not sure how much he's going to move the needle at this stage of his career.
All right, a couple other observations from last night. Obviously, we talked a little bit about Sirianni, and what are you thinking about these young receivers? Devonta Smith. It's weird. At one point last night, I tweeted out, it looks like Quez Watkins is the most polished, best guy you got at this point. Are you a little concerned with what you've seen? Reagor, obviously people were down on him entering the season, and what we've seen now 3 weeks from Smith.
Yeah, and Mike, it's Quez Watkins looked like the guy that Jalen Hurts had the most confidence in. You're right. I mean, when you make catches like he's made coming up big, and I think if you're a quarterback, you're going to keep going back to that guy. But what's more concerning to me is you've had 2 first-round receivers out there in Jalen Reagor and Devonta Smith. They both combined for 14 targets and 8 receptions, but they really didn't provide much in terms of big play. You got to help your quarterback out a little bit. I mean, you were drafted at it's pretty high draft capital. Obviously, the ball placement was off all night, but I mean, you got to help your quarterback a little bit here. And it looked to me like Quez Watkins was he was the only guy that really stepped up as far as the wide receivers go. And I really thought that you were going to see more from Dallas Goedert. Just finished with 2 receptions on 4 targets. The middle of the field was wide open all night, Mike. And the linebackers, as I outlined on your show when we last spoke on Friday, the linebackers are not very adept at covering that middle of the field. So he had that all night if he was willing to go to it. And you thought that you were going to start to see that trend early in the game, but they never really got into a rhythm.
That's a great point, is that the offense just absolutely lacked rhythm, it seems like, all night. And you brought up the tight ends. It's just unbelievable to me that you got these 2 tight ends who are both, dependable. Ertz is, maybe the best tight end in the history of the franchise. Goddard, you drafted in the 2nd round a couple of years ago, and he has proven to be an asset in the offense. And neither one of them seem to be a part of the game plan. It is just bewildering to see that they have essentially do not put those guys in their game plan.
It is baffling. You have 2 top-tier tight ends. And what happened to moving Dallas Goedert out wide and moving him around formations? He has the ability. If you're not getting production out of your wide receivers, or you want to go a little bigger body type guy out there to make those contested catches, why not put your athletic tight end in Dallas Goedert out there and throw one up for him? Mm-hmm. It's just a lack of creativity in this offense.
Or better yet, Andrew, the lack of movement in the offense. I think there was literally no pre-snap movement in the offense last night.
Yeah, there wasn't. It's just I don't understand. I have a hard time grasping the direction and what they're looking to accomplish on offense. It didn't seem like they had a plan plan of attack, and the execution was just poor.
Very much so. And as we mentioned also, the injuries on the offensive line, you got Kayvon Wallace now hurt too. Marcus Epps jumps into that spot. We don't know the deal with Rodney McLeod, but you're starting to see the injury bug rear their head again, and you just wonder, after watching last night what happened with the offensive line, guys starting to go down, all of the positive feels where, hey, Nick Sirianni in week 1, he put the guys in the right positions. You wonder, is this coaching staff in a little too over its head? The first week they faced a staff that was pretty inexperienced in itself with Arthur Smith. Mm-hmm. Now the last 2 weeks, you have Shanahan, very smart, savvy guy. McCarthy, he makes his mistakes. The guys won a Super Bowl. They got veterans on that staff. You wonder if this Eagles staff is a little in over its head.
Through 3 games, Mike, I have 2 of them being pretty egregious errors on, from Jonathan Gannon and Nick Sirianni. I think that's fair to say. I mean, you owe it to these coaches to give them a full season. Maybe they'll get it together. Maybe they'll get it right, and you'll see more innovation, and just smart, sound football decisions. But right now, I mean, I don't even know what to make of this offense. I don't know. Your quarterback, you're not putting your quarterback in position to be successful. You're not running the football. When your quarterback's clearly off and you're in the bright lights of Monday Night Football, maybe, to settle him in, get Miles Sanders going. Miles Sanders had 2 carries for 27 yards, and then you just go away from him. You didn't get him involved in the passing game enough. He had 3 catches for 28 yards. There were opportunities to attack the flats there. I just think that they need to. He talked about playing to adapting to his players' strengths, right? And I have yet to really see that, Mike, since week 1.
You're right. Players, not plays. And I mean, he said that, and the last 2 weeks, nothing further from that has been absolutely out the window, because it seems that he's calling plays for him, not the talent on this team. And then, Andrew, you have the problems that you have now on the offensive line. That makes it even more difficult to be able to do some of the things that he appears to want to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you thought that Jalen Hurts was bailing quick out of the pocket now, I mean, he could be under siege on Sunday and for the foreseeable future, given the state of the offensive line. You need to be able to find a way to get the ball out of his hands quickly, like you did in week 1. Quick passing game, get the horizontal game going, let your creative, explosive playmakers rack up yards, in space, and sort of simplify the game plan even more than it already appears that they have, because you have to find a way to generate some sort of offense and get the rhythm, because you can quickly fall behind and things start to snowball, as we saw last night, and you don't want to find yourself in that hole again. Against that high-powered Kansas City Chiefs team.
Hey, I don't want to, should they start to think about this? But, does Jalen Hurts, in your opinion, have the season to kind of work at this? Or do they say at some point, you know what, we're going to turn to Joe Flacco or even Gardner Minshew, who has been a guy who's won games in this league?
I'll say this: Gardner Minshew and Joe Flacco are not the answer.
No,
you owe it to Jalen Hurts to give him a full season to see if he can get it together and see if he offers some semblance of showing that he's a quarterback that you can sort of establish a future with, you can move forward with, you can build around. Because if you can do that, you can utilize your draft capital and then start to get pieces around him. But if there's any question, obviously, you have to look at drafting his replacement, but I think you really need to give him a full sample size, a full season to see what he's capable of doing, because there are times where you see the athleticism, you see the potential, but it has not been consistent enough. Give him a little bit of time and see if he can right the ship.
All right, Andrew DiCecco is back on Friday as the Eagles doesn't lighten up on the schedule. They'll take on a team that has lost 2 straight in the Kansas City Chiefs. You can hear that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Chiefs and Eagles, 1 o'clock Sunday. Merrill Reese on the call. Andrew's back on Friday to give a breakdown of that matchup. DiCecco NFL. Follow him on Twitter. And, of course, here on Football at 4 on the Sports Bash. All right, Andrew. Appreciate it, man.
You got it, man. Have a good one.